Welcome to episode 504 of the Man That Can Project podcast, obviously the ultimate guide for men seeking to unlock their full potential in mind and body. I'm your host, Lachlan Stuart, and this show is obviously aged for men between 30 and 50 years old who are looking to maximize their life through insightful conversations and expert advice. Today is no different. Have a very special guest, Taylah, Teschner / House.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know which one we'll go with. But you're a passionate naturopath who believes in the power of the body's inherent ability to heal itself, and your holistic approach to health and wellness is something that I deeply admire and believe in. And the other day, when I was thinking, I was like, I need some helpful conversations, although they all are, but around health, stress management, sleep, and natural ways to heal the body, because a lot of our clients are dealing with insane amounts of stress. And the first thing is like falling toward alcohol, sacrificing their sleep to work harder. And they don't realize they're in this, I guess, toxic cycle. And what you do and how you go about things is a great reminder for people, but also you provide supplements and everything like that, which you can dive into to help doing that. But obviously beyond your professional life, you're a wife to one of my closest mates, Stu, man, who's probably no doubt. He'll be bashing and clashing around the place. You're a business owner and you're also growing a little baby.
Yes, we're having our first baby.
How exciting.
It is exciting.
How's that been for you?
Terrifying. No, it's been really good. It's been a good journey. I feel it's going to give me good compassion for my clients in the future that are parents. I think that you kind of can't relate until you're in it.
Yeah, I like to pretend I can not.
Yeah, I have empathy, so I think. I'm like, your kid's annoying, get it out.
Yeah. It's cute. Yeah, it's just shit itself.
That's enough. Yeah.
Take it back, please. Yeah. But Taylah, let's go back to the beginning. So you grew up in Toowoomba, yeah?
Oakey, just outside of Toowoomba.
We'll class it as Toowoomba.
Same, yeah.
But getting into naturopathy or naturopath, becoming a naturopath, how did that all come to be? Give us a quick rundown of your younger years.
Yes. So it was probably, a lot of people ask me this question because it is something that I suppose isn't like a usual career path. But it's probably men's health that kind of got me started, because when I left school, when I was 15, before then, so when I was 15, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so he was like on that usual medical journey for about 3 or 4 years. Then when I was 18, he passed away. And it was when he was in getting treatments one day. We were there for radiation or one of those ones. And in the waiting room, there was a book, and it was all about nutrition for cancer, and specifically nutrition in prostate cancer. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that has to be like a conversation that is had with someone in this cancer journey. But I realized like that whole time that he was through that process, and it's not through the fault of the doctors or whatever, because I think it's obviously one of those things that you've got to branch out and explore for yourself. But no, that conversation was never had with him. Anyway, that was kind of like the thing that kind of, I guess, sparked my interest into natural health and then medicine, and what else could be, and what else could you be doing if you were, faced with a health crisis. And I guess cancer is like the extreme of that, but that was kind of like the starting point.
Yeah.
And then that's when I had already finished school. I was actually studying psychology at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. And then
you're like a wizard.
Yeah. No, well, I didn't get very far. The stats killed me. I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
Boring.
Yeah, very boring. And then that's when I decided to, one day Google natural health. I genuinely think that's what I Googled.
Yep.
And that's when the college came up, and I kind of read through the course, and I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And it was completely random because my mum was a nurse. Like, we'd never been to naturopaths growing up. Like, it's not like I'd had exposure from other areas until then. So, yeah, it was good. But, yeah, that's kind of what started the process.
Can you explain what naturopathy is? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, naturopathy.
I should have Googled that. But
I used to say naturopathy, and then I used to get ridiculed.
Yeah, I was like, naturopathy doesn't roll off the tongue as well as naturopathy.
And I think it sounds fancier, so let's go with that.
It's very
or
classy.
Pretentious.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Either or.
Yeah.
We'll let you decide.
So basically a naturopath, I mean, again, it does encompass a lot of things, so every naturopath is really different.
Yep.
But for me, naturopathy is all about kind of, I guess, addressing the underlying reasons as to why a disease process is going on. So we're really focusing on trying to allow the body to heal itself given the right tools. And so those tools might incorporate diet, lifestyle, supplements, testing. But basically we're encompassing and trying to look at the whole person. We're trying to look at like the whole person, what's going on in every area. How do you sleep? What's your gut health like? What are your hormones like? What do you eat? what do you do for work? It's everything, so that we're trying to basically get that person to an optimal state. And a person could come to a naturopath for lots of different reasons. It could be for gut health, it could be energy, it could be food intolerances, nutrition, hormonal imbalances, lots of different things. So it's always fun. It's like every day is a new day.
Yeah, it's a new day. But I think it ties into what you said a moment ago when you started exploring that when your dad was diagnosed with cancer. It does sort of fall upon the individual to start exploring other ways to do things.
Yeah.
Because if you only do what you've always done, the result's generally the same. So, you touched on so many things and it can be overwhelming for the average person. But if you understand, for example, you're going to live for 80 years and you were just to focus on one thing a year, over a decade, you would have a greater understanding around different, I guess, methodologies or ways of being healthier.
Managing that, yeah.
And I fell into it. Stuart and I have had mates who've died by suicide, and you start questioning, it can't always be like the head because we've all grown up in similar situations. So there are other things that influence, and obviously now there's a lot of research going into things that you mentioned like health, sleep, environment, exercise, sun exposure, all these natural things that are free, yet we still tend to focus on the medication. Now, medication's important in some degrees.
Absolutely,
It's a tool, as you mentioned. There are so many tools that are unexplored that may require a little bit more work, but I think for me personally, I find them more effective and sustainable in the long term.
And it's a long-term, approach instead of, I suppose. And sometimes I kind of describe medication to clients like it's like the life jacket that you need to put on when you're drowning. Yeah. You put that life jacket on and you take that medication. Yep. If you need it, you know it's like a life or death situation, or if you don't take it, you're going to get really unwell. Then you put the medication in, you take the medication. But eventually you want to swim to the side of the pond, and eventually then you need to learn to like take that life jacket off. Yep. And so that's when I will say to people, don't consider your medication as the evil, but you can work with all these other things to make that process as good as it can be. And then for some people, medication is still a part of that journey, and then some people are able to, move away from it. But it's whatever works for them. Yeah, exactly. That whole whatever works for them. But it's a lot of it comes back to responsibility and identifying what works well for you and what doesn't. Rather than just continuing, because a lot of the people that we work with, they're in high pressure situations, whether they're running companies or working in law firms, and the easiest thing for them, because they're really time poor, is those quick fixes which aren't sustainable in the long term. Like as I was saying to you, the reason why I reached out to you is I've got a client whose heart rate is resting at 83 or 87 beats a minute. I was like, dude, you need to sort that out. That's stress. What's next? That's not good. Yeah. And you can only take melatonin and all of these other things you're on for a short period of time before we need to address your work-life balance and everything else going on from that point. But let's sort of dive into now the stress and mental health sides of things, because obviously, you do a lot of gut work and everything like that. And the gut is linked to the brain. I believe that. And definitely. I'm sure you believe. Can we sort of touch on that first and then we'll see where we go from there? Yeah, sure. So I guess as in how the gut could impact mental health? Correct, yeah. I mean, we know that, so much, again, research, it's great that like now I suppose these supported theories are actually now being backed up with research, that the brain and the gut is in constant communication with each other. We also know that different bacteria can be responsible for those production of, say, your neurotransmitters, and your neurotransmitters are those things that in the brain that create GABA to make you not anxious, or serotonin to make you not depressed. And so there's a direct link on what kind of bacteria you have and then how you can make those neurotransmitters, which is fascinating and amazing, I think, and particularly because I think for a long time, maybe even still for some people, they would not understand the link, I suppose, that everything can be so connected. So really helping people to ascertain or, I guess, delve into what could be going in what they're eating, what's going on in their gut health. Like, have they got good bacteria? Have they got overgrowth that's bad? Are they got a lot of inflammation in their gut? Is there any kind of like leaky gut stuff going on, which again is a quite new and emerging area? But all of that can be definitely linked back to anxiety, fatigue, depression. Yeah. What is leaky gut? Leaky gut is the technical name, because it's such a bit of a fad term, I think, and I kind of almost cringe saying it now because I think just so many people say it. Like, it's just like, oh, leaky gut. And I'm like, do you know what that means? Like, I think, yeah. And a lot of people will come in and they'll write on their forms like, I have leaky gut. And I'm like, how do you know?
Yeah.
But the technical name is intestinal hyperpermeability, which basically means that the gut wall lining is very slowly, like it's got little gaps between it. Within that, then that means that things that shouldn't end up in the bloodstream can end up in the bloodstream, like undigested food or bacteria.
Wow.
But then it also gives rise to a lot of nutrient deficiencies. So then even if you're eating a really well-balanced diet, you can then basically be losing those nutrients. So then even when you're doing all the right things, you're not feeling the benefit from it because you're not actually getting the absorption.
So, for example, someone who's trying to lose weight, who has leaky gut, for example, and aren't getting the results that they want, they might be saying, I'm eating well, I'm within my calorie range. That could be a reason why. Is that?
Yeah, or I'm eating well, but I just feel tired all the time regardless. Or I'm eating well, but I'm not gaining, muscle the way that I should be. Or, or a really common one is like chronically low iron on blood tests. So kind of those reoccurring things that you might be thinking, hey, like I'm doing all the things that the media tells us and my PT tells me and whatever, like I'm eating well and I'm exercising and I'm getting my 8 hours sleep, but why am I not well? And I think that's then when I say to people, right, if you've done all of that, let's delve further and you can test. So it's not a guessing game anymore, which is really cool. Because again, like I think for a long time naturopaths cop the witchery, association,
I know,
and it's like, oh, it's just a theory, it's a naturopath thing, but it's really not. It's so much more than that now. And there's just so much emerging evidence. I mean, I don't think that there's enough yet to still support a lot of the theories, but I think also what I see more than anything is I trust how the client is in clinic. So if they're coming back and we're working with an area and they're saying they're feeling better and they're getting better blood test results and they're losing weight or they're gaining muscle or they're feeling better in terms of energy, then you can't fight that.
No, literally the results. That's what they want. It's like no one really cares about the process too much except for the experts. But if they can feel the results, they're like, that's all I need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And there isn't no one size fits all approach.
No.
How do they go about testing for that? Because I've never even heard of leaky gut, so I'm fascinated by this now. I know, I'm like just all my notes, everything that I've got on here is redundant. This whole conversation's about to change.
So basically you can test it via a stool test. Yeah, so I talk to people a lot all day usually about their poo. It's like a good conversation to have, and I'm like, I kind of sometimes forget that I don't find that weird, so I'm like, oh yeah, so is it formed? What's your poos like? How many? You know, is there undigested food? And they're looking at me like, oh, I don't know. And
I don't sit there and look at it.
And I'm like, well, you should. And so then they come back and they have a full report for me, and it's satisfying because I guess that's the type of thing that tells me what's going on internally. And so if you haven't taken note of your poos, make sure you do.
Well, don't want to say this, but most people are on their phone. I'm probably on Instagram. I'm probably doing an Instagram update while I'm on the toilet or checking Fox Sports or something.
Well, next time, just remind yourself, turn around.
Put your phone down.
Turn around, have a good squeeze, let your naturopath know how it is.
Better yet, take a photo and send it.
Yeah, so people have done that. Yeah.
I'm probably not going to do that.
No, I mean, I know sometimes.
I'm not flattered by it.
Sometimes Stu, like my husband, he likes to do that. Or
Stu would have done that to me too, and not for any health benefits, just for, look how big this is.
Just pride, just pure pride. No, but you can analyse it on a stool test now. So we've got really good, what they call like microbiome testing. And so basically people like clients will collect a sample, send it away to different pathology companies. I use one in Australia out of Melbourne. And so the test is called a complete microbiome mapping. And essentially from that you can ascertain how they're absorbing their nutrients, how their pancreas is, inflammation markers,
so cool.
gluten intolerances, bacteria, parasites, candidas.
And so even from that point, if you were tip-top health, you could then use that as like a baseline for future tests. Yeah,
and it's also really good because I think sometimes people aren't always in chronic states of bad health, but they're coming. They just really want to know how they can be better and how they could make things, better for them, which I think is awesome. And so that's more of that prevention rather than cure. And that's a really good thing because again, your blood tests can only tell you so much, and you're only also objective so far on how you are, people will say I think I feel good, I'm not sure, but how do you compare that to someone else? So
it's not tangible.
No, exactly. So testing is a really good way of being able to actually identify what's wrong. It's not guesswork, and it takes then the element of people having to keep guessing and trialing, cutting out this, or try this supplement, or try this bad diet. But a lot of the time it can just kind of be
I think, it's definitely, and for a lot of people, we don't, especially men as well, they won't go see a doctor or do any of these preventative things until they're, and you probably see that a lot.
That's most people though. I feel like it's still a lot of that, like, oh my gosh, I've put up with this for 10 years and I'm actually genuinely sick of myself now. Now I'm going to do something about it. Yeah.
And that's like when Dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer, we found out at the wedding because he couldn't piss.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like,
oh my gosh, that's right.
And then he goes on to have prostate cancer, but I'm like, he hasn't been to the doctor. And I'm the same. I'm like, I don't need the doctor. I'm awesome. How good am I? But now I'm going to I told you I got those blood tests done yesterday just so I know what my biomarkers are on certain things, because you can sort of get on top of things earlier.
Just get a baseline.
A baseline to work from. And once again, it is a luxury to be able to do that. But for people listening, if you are in the position where you can do that, or you do genuinely care about your long-term health, I would highly recommend getting off the booze for it's dry July. Stewie said he's doing dry July.
Yeah.
You could save the same amount for a blood test like that, and then get your blood test done every July and see where your biomarkers are at.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you don't know, you don't know. And I think also it's about, like, a lot of people will say to me, like, oh, I keep going to my GP and it's not definitely to rat on the medical system. Like, they've got their parameters that they can work within too.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, things will prevent them from being able to give you a blood test referral, but there are practitioners out there who are happy to do that. So, you just got to find the right one and find someone who's willing to do a little bit more with that. But yeah, I mean, GPs have a lot on their brains as it is,
Literally,
so sometimes, like, your prevention and your wellness is not there first and foremost,
Yeah, definitely. Fine. And a big thing for me when I'm going is, like, are they asking me questions about lifestyle? Because I think, as we've mentioned, and even with a lot of the mental health data, that was released in 2018 around, like, why men are taking their life by suicide and various other things. And it's similar for women. But it is looking at those lifestyle factors. How's your sleep? How's your home life? How's your work life? But people, they're just like, oh, you're depressed. Cool. And once again, not bagging on them, but a bit more questioning will deliver better answers to treat a problem a lot better. And
but again, I think, like you said before, it's hard because, GP is allocated a certain amount of time. And so, like, that's, for them, they're just there to get you that life jacket. They're just there to help you get out of that state. And, how incredible and how good that we have that, and it saves lives. But without, beyond that, it also does take a little bit more for that person then to be like, okay, well, what else? And I think then that's where people also need to take a little bit more responsibility
100%
for their own health and prevention, and how else could I be doing better, or how else could I be treating myself better? Because I think it's not always on someone else to fix the problem that you've created. Like, you need to then stand up and be like, okay, what else could I be doing? Not just like, oh, nothing came out of it at the end, But
well, you would probably see that with your clients, right? Like, you have a chat to them, find out what's going on, talk about poo with them.
Half an hour of poo questions.
Half an hour of poo questions. But then you'll, provide a pathway to change, right? To improvement. That doesn't fall on you though. You can't follow them around their house and see what they...
People wish I could do that. Yeah. Some people say, can you come grocery shopping with me? I said, dolls, you can do it.
Why don't we just make a new service for Taylah? She's $100,000 a year. You'll get an hour a week with her.
Great. Oh my gosh.
There's probably someone who listens in America or something, they're like, done.
Yeah. And I have clients who literally say to me, oh, well, can't you just cook it for me? I'll pay you to do it. And I'm like, oh, should I go into that business? Yeah. Like, I could just be sitting at home making these healthy meals and people are happy to pay me for it. And I was like, no, I don't like cooking that much.
Yeah, me either. But there are, go on. I just went on a massive tangent. But going back to the responsibility for people, you do create that pathway. And I do that as well with what we do around stress and getting people to look at their work-life balance. What can they do to manage stress? And we'll dive into stress here now. But it does fall on the individual to make sure that they do stick to that plan and prioritise what's important to them.
Yes, and starting small.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, small and make some attainable goals, because I think when you start to talk about stress, people get really overwhelmed and that's stressful.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But it's like that whole, all of us, myself, yourself, we're still working on stuff. We're still learning about health. We're still learning about a whole heap of stuff. And that's like the long-term play.
Totally.
I always think about if when I'm 90, I'm still able to run around and do things and have great health. I've got a lot of things to learn and a lot of things to fail in. So I think long, but I play short. Like, it's like, what's in front of me today? What do I need to learn about?
Which is most humans, as real. Yeah.
It sort of decompartmentalizes things and makes it easy to bite off. But going into stress, what is stress to you? And then I'll share what it is to me from so the people listening have an idea, because people are just like, how are you going? I'm busy or I'm stressed.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, I got told once that people who answer that they're busy are not actually that busy.
Right, they're just lazy
like
thinking of rude.
Yeah. For me, I think stress is probably one of the top 3 things that people would write. Like I always say on my intake forms, write your top 3 concerns, and people always write stress almost nearly every time, which is interesting because I'm like, how do you think I can help you manage that? Like, that's you. But what I do is like try and, I guess, break it down with them and be like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? How many days a week? What are you working? Why are you working that many hours? All of that stuff. But to me, stress is like, I suppose, yes, we think, okay, work, kids, finances, partners, relationships, all of that kind of thing. But
podcasting,
so stressed. I'm overwhelmed. But I think it's also things like long-term inflammatory diseases. So like you living with a condition for a long time, or lack of good sleep, or, nutrient deficiencies consistently and not eating well, pushing the candle, burning the candle at both ends, environmental toxins, but even emotional stresses is a stress as well. So if you're in a constant state of anxiety, if you're in a constant state of low mood, like that all creates inflammation. So that is a stress on the body. And so sometimes people aren't necessarily getting a lot of external stresses, but it could be internally as well. Poor gut health long term. So for me, I suppose it's more of like that like the body's internal clockwork that I'm kind of interested in, or hormonal imbalances long term. But it can be a myriad of things. And I think also, people with shift workers.
Oh yeah, that's not
easy. Yeah. And that's a lot of my clients, like nurses.
Yep.
But I think it can be just like a vast thing, but also everyone's stress is perceived differently. I've had clients who, are like solicitors, owning their own businesses, like owning their own firms and traveling here, there and everywhere, and they're in family law, it's very stressful. And I'll say to them, like, how are you? And they're like, no, I handle it really well. And normally I'm like, bullshit. Like I call, but then I'm like literally I'm so like, I'm like, sure. Yeah. I like note down my own little notes. But then I've like tested those people's cortisol levels, and cortisol is our stress hormone. And it's actually
so cool. So you can test
good.
that, yeah?
Yeah. And it's great because, again, like, how do you get objective about your stress?
Yeah.
I don't like, what's your stress compared to my stress? How do I perceive it compared to how do you perceive it? And that's the other thing, is if you're constantly then comparing yourself, but you don't handle stress very well, but the person you work with does, and so you're constantly being like, oh, they can do it, why can't I? Then you feel like a failure all the time, which is then another stress.
Yep.
So being able to actually ascertain that on a piece of paper and show them and be like, you're actually in fight or flight, like you need to stop, or you're in full-on burnout because of all of those years of stress. And so sometimes, again, being able to quantify that, people really get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
I literally didn't know you could test for that. So now
You're like, now I want to do it.
Yeah, I want to do it, and I want to get a lot of my clients, because how we use like wearables, obviously, heart rate variability and some basic things, but even resting heart rate, etc., is what I'll be able to measure people off, so I can see the impacts of alcohol on resting heart rate, or how your heart rate variability when you're stressed or fatigued, etc. Which, once again, it's like, how do you quantify those things? These is like an overall metric, but it's not as detailed as what you just mentioned. I'm going to be sending people for blood. And is it blood tests?
It's saliva or urine. Yeah.
Sweet.
So urine is usually, or saliva is because it's like what's metabolized.
Yeah,
and so it's not just what's free floating. And so it'll actually like plot it on a graph over a day. And so we should have normally like good amounts of cortisol in the morning, and then it should like really gently, naturally drop off over the day. And then that's when your melatonin rises. But normally if you're in chronic stage of stress, or you could be in a bit of burnout and chronic stress. So I have clients who their cortisol will be like flatline in the morning, and they're the people who are like, it takes me an hour to wake up. I have to have 3 coffees. Like I just can't wake up for that first 2 hours. But then as soon as they're on, their cortisol's like through the roof. And so then I'm like, okay, so now we're in stress and burnout. But then they'll hit that 2-3 o'clock slump where then they'll fall again. And then all of a sudden it's rising again before bed, and they're like, no, I can't sleep and I'm not sure why. And their melatonin doesn't even get the chance to rise.
So what would you do for that? Like how would you sort of say, for example, that's me. Let's assume that's me, because it probably is. What's like my road to recovery? And I know it's all individual, but like, is there a rough pathway? Yeah,
so like it's a lot. So instantly, like that's when we start talking about like lifestyle. So so lots of things can come into that. So I'll say like, how are you exercising? So some people who are in chronic burnout or in fight or flight shouldn't be doing high intensity exercise, and so That's actually a really hard conversation to have with someone.
I struggle with that all the time, telling people that.
Yeah, and it's usually the people who are like really, they're like the HIIT workouts, you know, like HIIT 25, 30 minutes, like high intensity, 6-7 days a week. And then I have to say to them, like, that is literally doing you more damage than good. And that's why you're not shifting that weight, even though you're doing all of this on paper, tick, tick, tick.
Yep.
And so like exercise, the timing of when they might exercise, so you can actually then be like, okay, your cortisol is actually good here. So that's when you should be exercising. But don't exercise at night time, because then that rises your cortisol and you're trying to go to bed then and wind down. Work. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people I've got to quit their jobs.
I'm working at it, trying to get people to quit their jobs.
And they come back and they're like, you'll be so proud of me, Taylah. I quit. And I'm like, oh, congratulations. I feel bad.
But if your life falls apart, it wasn't me.
Yeah, I hope financially you're fine. But no, and then they'll, really start to create boundaries. Like I have clients all the time and then they're like, I've got to be at work by 7:30 and I leave about 6 o'clock and I just don't have time outside of that to exercise or whatever. And I'm like, what are your hours? And they're like, 9 to 5. And I say, so why do you go in at 7 and then stay till 6? I like to get it all done. And I'm like, so what are we doing? Why are we doing that? And so I literally just sit there and lecture them. And then it's like I get so hard with them. I'm like, come on, what are you doing? And then, they'll come back and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know why I was doing that for so long. But you kind of get in that hamster wheel. Yeah. Yeah. So work, family environment. I say to women, do you need a cleaner? Like get a cleaner in, take that pressure off yourself. Or, how can you outsource that? Or create an hour a week where you can go and get that downtime. Boundaries, self-care. Self-care is huge. Quality of sleep. So then I'll talk about sleep. What are you doing? How you're looking after your sleep cycles. Yep. And then, supplements can be really helpful in that acute phase. So that's when I'll talk to people about adrenal herbs or adrenal nutrients. So they're things like magnesium.
Yep. It's huge. That's my favourite stuff.
Yep. You'll excrete magnesium a lot quicker if you're stressed. And so a lot of people are just really deficient in magnesium. Form matters. So I wouldn't go and buy the one from Woolies always.
That's the important, even like fish oils and stuff. Like there's so much dodgy stuff. If you're going to do it,
just do it
properly.
Yeah, or just don't do it because you're probably just like paying for concrete in your stomach. So don't. But it's a lot of the time just having conversations around that. And then, and the supplements can be really good to get them, like I said, out of that acute phase, and just to kind of really mellow everything out. And there's some really beautiful herbs that we can use that have, again, really good research on how they can actually modulate your cortisol. But that's not the end game. You can't out supplement a crappy
shit lifestyle.
And so if the stress is coming externally, you need to address that. I mean, the supplements and food changes and stuff are all really good and they work. Again, you're always going to find excuses not to do those things if you haven't then actually changed the root problem. Yeah.
It's so, for me, whenever I think about stress, like you have chronic stress, but then you have that acute stress that you mentioned, and it's generally because there's something in your life that's you need to change. For example, and once again, there's positive and also negative stress, like some short-term stress, like for progressive overload with training is important because you get
or a car's going to hit you and you need to move
fucking
out of the way.
Move, man.
Like that's helpful. Thanks,
or
adrenaline.
Financial stress means you might have to take a second job. Whatever. Like there's definitely a thing, or you might have to have a conversation with your partner. That's important.
You can't avoid stress. Yeah. Like that's also to be really clear.
Because it just festers, but it's then going, okay, how do we manage that? Supplementation is important, but if you don't change the root,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, look, you can worry about it, but you're also only going to get so far.
Yep.
You're only going to be able to make so much progress. Yep. And so, like, I do have a lot of clients who, they'll come and they're like, yep, I'm all in. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where the space is that you're going to create that all in, but okay, cool, I'm in too. Yep. And so we'll get them on their supplements and I'll set them up with their food and I'll say to them, like, this is all you need to do with your food. And I'll outline it really basic. Like, it's not hard, you know, so I try and keep it really realistic. And, I ask them, like, what is your morning routine like? So I'm not asking them to, do anything beyond. But then, they'll just disappear off the radar for like a year. And then they'll come back all of a sudden. They're like, okay, I'm ready now because I've actually, changed my job. So I've got the space to do it. And so it's a lot about timing for people.
Definitely. I think there's also an important part. I had a client this morning who I used to work with in Sydney and we've had 12 months apart. And now he's come back. And the beautiful thing about someone being persistent or also having a growing relationship is you can start to show them their patterns, like their behaviors. And for a lot of us, it is about timing, but that timing comes through, why do I keep falling back or falling off the wagon here? Well, for someone, I'll use this loosely as an example, person's trying to get their heart rate down, get healthy again, but they're working from fucking 5 a.m. till 11 p.m, running a 4-hour sleep. It's not a healthy lifestyle. I understand he's supporting a lot of people, families' wages, and I understand the stresses of that. So for me, it's kind of, if I were you, I'd fucking quit your job personally. Yeah. But what has to happen in order for you to feel like you can do that? And there's always a step in the lead up to, and it's like, okay, such and such, Johnny, let's call you Johnny. If we achieve that together, will you then be able to cut back your work hours? Yeah, Lachie, no worries. Okay. Yeah. Then we get to have that conversation when that happens, and most people are going to have another thing that they need to do before they can care about it. So we go, Johnny, do you really want to prioritize your longevity and health and your relationship? I do, I swear. All right, well, this is what we've just gone through the last 6 months. Yeah. So tell me how we're going to fucking change it if you keep prioritizing work over the top of it. Yes. And it is easier said than done, but I think through longevity and relationship and working with people, you can then start to show them, hey, this is your pattern. You're avoiding.
And they figure it out. Like they do. And I mean, it takes some people just longer than others. But I also think, again, it's about like bite sizes. Like don't just walk out tomorrow and think like, okay, I've listened to this amazing podcast about stress and how I can fix myself. And then
which everyone's
you're all doing
it.
Yeah, they are. But they're inspired. We're inspiring them.
Hashtag inspired.
But, you don't expect great change overnight. Like I just think it's like the small little things. And I say to women and, all my clients, I mean, predominantly I work with women. That's why I keep saying women.
I know. And I always say men, but
yeah, we're talking about
same
both.
Messages.
And I say to people, like, you can't expect to go back tomorrow and then create all of these different things that then are going to create overwhelm. But also it's probably a short-term change. Yep. Like you're only going to be able to do that for like 4 to 6 weeks and you're going to find yourself falling off the wagon again. Yep. And now you feel like crap and now you're in the pits again. And so now you got to pick yourself back up. And I say to people, like, just start small, like 10 minutes a day, 1 hour a week, like one extra healthy meal a week. It's small. It doesn't have to be game-changing, going and sitting in the bar in hinterland meditating for an hour and a half each day, because people are like, oh, I don't like, that's not my cup of tea. And I'm like, great, don't make it a cup of tea, go and find something else that you do like to do, know. But it's got to be very, like you said, individualized. It has to be. And
those immersive experiences are great, like you mentioned. And we run a lot of workshops which are immersive, which are great. But once again, that's not your life. You go back to what your reality is, and you need to work out how you're going to make it work for that.
Yes. And also then just don't accept that, oh, that's not my life. That's that then. But okay, well, actually, how could you implement, things that you do like to do? Like some people, I just say to them, like, grab your cup of tea in the morning, go sit in the sun and just sit there for 10 minutes.
What would be some things you've done with Stewie, right? Because I know Stewie and I grew up together. We both were not very cared for ourselves very well, and then obviously we met ladies like yourself and Amy who were like, hey, you need to start looking after yourself.
Stuart actually doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
He's actually miserable, guys. He's actually miserable. He just wants to eat donuts and drink beer, and I'm like, no, it's not on. God bless him.
Only on Saturdays, which is where he's disappeared to.
He's like buying bags of chips, like sitting there watching his footy.
He's just looking through the window eating chips outside right now
because he knows I can't get to him. I'm trapped in.
You've got an hour to just binge. But what would be some things for, like, obviously Stewie runs his own business as well, carries stress. What are some ways that you've helped him, recognize, or even for you as a partner? Actually, this is probably a good part. A lot of women would be watching their blokes carry stress. They don't recognize it. We're quite naive to it. We just go, oh, fucking, it's all right. Right. Yeah, you'll be right. We'll get on with it.
Yeah. Give it a tap on the back. Yeah, she'll be right.
You'll be right, mate. What are some warning signs for you when you know Stewie's dealing with the excessive amount of stress, and how would you sort of maybe even have that conversation with him?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Stewie's like, sometimes I feel like he's a little bit of an anomaly though, because he has like he's very easygoing, as you know. Like it's kind of hard to roll him up. But it is when he gets to that point, like it's like a very short fuse, and you can kind of see it coming because it's just in his mood, like it's short, it's snappy, and then one little thing will just trigger him and it'll just be like this massive release. And he does not, let's just not use Stu as an example, because I'm going to say he doesn't deal with his stress always very well, in the sense that he's very good at like, get on with it. Like, you'll be right. And then all of a sudden it's like,
a volcano.
I say to him, like, what have you done recently, like, to like help yourself? And so then I start lecturing him, and I'm like, well, you're drinking piss. No, he's not. But I'm like, you're all these late nights, and then you get to your weekend, and all you want to do is socialize. Like, and is that a good source of your energy? Because he's a very social person, and I understand that sometimes that does help people come out of that. But I'm also like, when are you actually getting active rest? And so sometimes I force him into booking a massage, like I'll have to book it for him, or go and get in the sauna. Like, and again, if I can go with him, he'll go. But again, I think it's sometimes just people who aren't naturally good at it. Like I'm, I guess, very aware of it. So like I try to then kind of carry that for him.
Yes.
But also, you know, food is big, you know, how he eats, how he fuels himself is huge. So I always try and really be aware of like what he needs in a day.
So
and
a meat pie and a twirl is not good at Smoko.
No, honestly, like he knows like I watch the account. I'm like, where's this money? Macca's, $5. Oh, it's just a coffee. She'll be right. But you know, or actually now his dad owns a fish and chip shop. So like if he's dangerous out there, and like it's obviously not going to cost him anything. So I'm like, what are you eating? No, but it's trying to get him to fuel himself properly. And that's come a long way. You know, when I first met him, he would have like Nutri-Grain for brekkie, a V for Smoko, you know, sandwiches for lunch. It was very white processed, you know, quick energy. So, you know, the conversations I have a lot with him now is about like, okay, long-term energy, long-term sustained energy. So let's have eggs for breakfast. Let's have protein. Let's only have one coffee. Let's not overdo the caffeine. And we have smokers which are like leftovers, so they're more nutrient dense. And so it's just fueling him right and also reminding him to get off the computer at night time. Like I'm like, done, cut off, you're in bed. Like it's like a small child, but you know, it's fun. It's good practice.
Yeah. It's like I've been used to baby. How's motherhood? I've been doing Stuart for years,
6 years. Oh, I'm a legend. I know what I'm doing. If I can handle Stuart, I can handle anything. But yeah, so it's I think sometimes also helping each other hold accountable, and he's really good with that for me too. You know, for example, like he'll see me like just flogging myself sometimes. You just go through busy phases, and he'll be like, "Okay, enough, babe. Like put your laptop down." Or then we're just really aware of like what our happy spaces are, and so we'll go to the farm or you know just like escape for a little while and just have those down weekends and not feel guilty about it. And I always say that to him when he's not very good at being able to like go away and then not think about it. And so even when we're away, I'll say to him, now just think like, you know, this is us away, you know, it just doesn't matter for now. You'll go back to it tomorrow. It'll still be there, you know. So it's just, I think you can be a really good support person for someone else. And I guess that's a big conversation I have with clients all the time is like, get your partner on board. Get your partner on board, get them also helping you stay accountable to what your goals are. And if your goal is to have more time on the weekends, like make sure they're like helping you being like, righto, babe, it's 12. You said after 12 o'clock, you don't want to do anything, you know, housework or whatever. That's it. Cut it off. You know, let's go and do something good for ourselves.
That's such an important part, having your partner on board, but also being around good people. Like I'm very fortunate. Like even I know Amy learns a lot from you, and maybe before, you know, having the right people in your life to be able to approach and have those conversations with is, you know, something that we're very lucky to have.
Special,
you know, being able to just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Tay, I need to learn about some stuff from you." And here I'm getting a gob full of shit. I haven't
He's
even
like, leaky gut. We have to come back to that.
We're going back to leaky gut. But even just so many things that for me, it's like going back to the fundamentals of health, testing cortisol. Like that's blown my fucking mind. To now I can go on Monday, I'm going to be like, righto, lads, we're testing cortisol
Everyone's
this week.
spitting these tubes, peeing these cups. Let's
go
get it done.
Sending it to Taylah. But obviously for Stewie or for anyone listening, like get your partner on board. But having those conversations around how you can set boundaries to pull your partner up without them blowing up. Like, because it all comes down to communication at the end of the day.
Be on the same page, like not try and like keep pushing them onto something that they're not in for. And sometimes I just, you know, like I have a lot of conversations, again, it's about their husbands, because I say, well, what's your husband like? And they'll usually be like, oh, he just doesn't care about that stuff. He doesn't prioritize it. It's like me trying to get him to eat healthy. It's just never going to happen. And so I say, wipe your hands of him. Just be done with it. Because why are you carrying his health on you and raising children and whatever if they're not prioritizing and it's not like, you know, they're not a priority for them? You're never going to make it a priority for them. So don't worry about it. You know, let it go.
And it's hard and especially for women as well, obviously in that caring, nurturing nature, predominantly it's like you always want to
like how do I
help how do I build him up and fix him and change him? And it's like, you're not going to change someone who doesn't want to change himself. So I think that's, for me, I do the exact same thing. It's like, if you don't like your job, fucking change it. That person's not good value to you.
Let it go. That's their journey. They'll figure it out. You know. And then when they do want help, and sometimes I'll just say, well, lead by example. You know, if they can then see you doing really well and eating and feeling good and your moods are better, and you know they can notice that evenness in you, then obviously like they might then start to come on board with it. But there's no point trying to push someone into it. Like it's just you're creating more stress for yourself.
Yeah. So and what is active rest? You've spoken about it a few times.
Well, a psychologist many years ago actually explained it to me, and I use it with clients all the time, is active rest is when you're actually intentionally stopping to take time for you, whereas like inactive rest is like Netflix and chill. Like where
Love
you're just
Netflix
not,
and chill.
I mean, we all love it, don't we? I'm a big fan. But I think that, you know, whether if you're just zoning out and you're just kind of like numbing yourself, or you're scrolling, you know, you're just scrolling and you're spending like an hour and a half, like just in a rabbit warren. Like you're not actually thinking about your mental health, how you could be better, what your intentions are for the week. You're not really actively thinking about it. Then that's inactive rest. It's still good, but it's not maybe the right thing always. So I say to people like, I want you to do 10 minutes a day and an hour a week of active rest. So 10 minutes a day is like sitting in the sun for 10 minutes or doing a guided meditation for 10 minutes or grounding yourself or, you know, going for a walk and just seeing nature and getting outside because most people spend their days inside. An hour a week could be where you then book a massage or you intentionally want to catch up with a girlfriend who really brings you a lot of joy, or you want to go and play golf with your mates. Like book it in, have that time, that whatever is good for your headspace. And it could be lots of different things for lots of different people, but have that intentionally set that it's an active point of rest.
I love it. That's a good one because I wanted to get that across because everyone's like, yeah, I'm chilling. And you're like,
yeah, but there's a difference.
you're not maximising your chilling.
Yeah. And journaling's a good one. Meditation.
I love that. It's like if I'm getting stressed, I just got a brain dump.
Get it down.
Because I get so much frustration. I still struggle to communicate some things to Amy until I blow up. And then I'm like, fuck, I got to stop doing that, which I'm better at marginally. But it's like when I just brain dump. Yeah. She'll listen to this and she'll go, what the fuck was that? Yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry in advance. No, but when I write things down and just unload what's going on in my head, I can process it and realize that wasn't even an issue. I just needed to vent somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's so important to find spaces in your day, whether it is with a girlfriend or a mate, to just blow off steam.
Yeah. And a lot of people use gym, I know as well, like exercise. A lot of people are like, that's my therapy. And again, I mean, I think that is a good form of release. So don't get me wrong. And I mean, it creates all those happy hormones and everything. But at the end of the day, if you're in a state of burnout and you're
still
in overwhelm, like, are you really doing yourself any favors by doing that? Or should you go and book yourself a massage or sit in the sauna, do something else like that that's going to be a bit more like targeted? Yeah,
you got to earn the right to train. That's my biggest thing. And once again, I make all my clients wear whoops. I will start getting them to get their cortisol checked. But like, I can see how they're sleeping, the quality of their sleep, their heart rate variability. And if it's not where we need it to be over a sustained period of time, it's like, we're not even worrying about exercise. You can do your walking, but let's go back to hydration, sleep.
Yeah.
Breath
Eating,
work. Yeah, just
nourishing yourself.
Yeah, getting all those basics back so that you are waking up
all the
refreshed.
time, what's the point? Like,
Literally.
what is the point?
Like, you're not going to get results, dude.
Yeah. And that's always the people who, I guess, come in and they're like, I'm eating this many calories and I'm exercising this much and I'm working out, and then like they're so intense, they're so hyper focused on it. And I'm like, firstly, that's your problem. You need to take a breath.
Chill the fuck
out. Chill, Wendy. No, but then I say to them, like, you know, sometimes you've got to pick and choose the exercise that's right for you. And then again, that's where sometimes the testing can be good, because then I can be like, this is why, you know, because trying to tell someone not to exercise when they're so, you know, we've all been told you want to lose weight, you want to feel good, you exercise. But that's just not the case. It's
always you have to be sweating to have had a good session.
Yes.
Like good strength training where you have 5-minute rest periods, etc. You're not sweating. Like, it's not that hard. You're sitting on Instagram in between or whatever, reading Substack, whatever you're doing, but you don't really get a sweat. And I have a lot of clients when we're doing a strength cycle, for example, and they're like, I don't feel like I've worked out. I'm like, that's fine. Yeah. They're like, can we do a finish? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive to what we're doing. Yeah. So just relax.
Yeah. But that's a holistic trainer. Whereas, like, you know, and I mean, again, not to pick apart it's not every PT obviously, but there are a lot of personal trainers and gym, you know, guiders out there that just aren't really preaching the right message.
Exactly. And it's, you know, because we work CEOs and whatnot, it's like, I understand you're already burning the candle. You're telling me you're burning the candle.
You've got that.
You can't do that. But sleep, let's dive into sleep, because, you know, 40%, I was reading some articles earlier this week just to brush up, you know, and 40% of Australian adults experience some form of inadequate sleep. So once again, different stages of sleep. So that comes across in like accidents, lost productivity, costs, and it's apparently costing the economy in Australia up to 66 billion per year. And people always are wondering, how do I feel better? How do I stop my mood swings? How do I build more muscle? It's like, sleep.
How do you sleep? Yeah.
Sleep. I would sacrifice anything to get sleep now.
Oh, I'm a big fan of sleep.
I've never wanted, but I've come from that mindset where it's like, I got to be up at 4. Like, I still do get up at 4, but I now go to bed at 8. So I still make sure and once again, when I'm slowly phasing out those 4s, just because that's my mindset that I have to be up. It's my quiet time. So I'm working on that. It's not, once again, it's not going to happen overnight.
You're aware of it.
I'm aware of it, and I'm committed to going to 6 is what my time's going to be.
Cool. Okay. Sure. That's like more of a human time.
It's a huge.
Not a fan of mornings. I hate
4
mornings.
Sucks. Yeah. And going to bed early sucks as well.
Yeah, and it's restrictive depending on like again who you're hanging out with or like what
Amy
you've got to do
stays up
after
all
work.
night. She's up till like midnight. I'm like, what'd you do for the last 4 hours of your day? Like, I missed out on it. You know?
I've been catching some
FOMO. So, but looking at that sleep cycle and all of those sorts of things. So how does sleep impact mood and stress and a lot of those things from your experience?
I mean, I guess it's like the obvious things that instantly, like if you're tired, you're cranky. You know, like people will just say like, I'm just more irritable. I just want sleep. And I mean, again, it depends on like if you're a shift worker, if you're a mother, you got kids waking you up. But if you've got the ability to make that change, I mean, obviously just basic sleep. I feel like personally this has been a journey for me the last couple of years because for the first time ever a couple of years ago, I remember talking to you about it. I was like, Lockie, help. I was like, you know stuff about health. Now you need to help me. And you were like, you were talking about the brain frequency or something.
Yeah. With the brain tap.
Yeah. I was doing everything. And again, it was 100% anxiety driven because I was anxious because I wasn't getting sleep, which was creating more anxiety because then I was tired. And it was this vicious cycle that just had to be broken. I think it was a bit of a lesson, but a lesson to also feel really bad for my clients who are really tired because I was like, what do you mean you can't sleep? And this is when then Stu would say that to me and I'd be like, I'm going to kill you. Like I think that you might actually die today because he would just like literally pop his little head on the pillow and within that second he's out. Gone, asleep. And every woman says that to me. And I'm like, you also got to understand men run on a 24-hour cycle. It's different. Yeah. But I mean, obviously he's got a physical job. It's different. Okay, whatever. But for me, you know, like people will present with like a lot of sleep issues, but then, you know, a lot of those symptoms again, like it can be anxiety, it can be mood changes, you know, that rapid, you know, up and down or very like irritable or on edge, which then obviously affects their families and their friends and their work and then how productive they are the next day, but also their food choices. Because
massively,
and weight because again if they're not you know they're not sleeping instantly that throws their blood sugar levels and so you wake up on a naturally elevated blood sugar level. So then what do people do? Have coffee, skip brekkie, you know, might have just a bowl of cereals full of sugar and so instantly their blood sugars are now dysregulated for the rest of the day. That dysregulation then creates cravings on then what you choose to eat. So like if you're I always say like if you eat well, the cravings won't come as much because, again, you feel like you've got better control. But then if you're kind of on that roller coaster of like blood sugar drops through the day, like that kind of creates what you then go for at 10 o'clock. And you're probably not going to want to go for a handful of nuts. You're going to want the muffin and the coffee because it's quick energy. You know, it's a natural response of the body. And so kind of then once you've had that crappy sleep, that just again sets that entire tone for the rest of the day. So then how you train, how you recover, how your mood is, how you're productive you are, what foods you're eating, it's a constant cycle. And I've had women who, again, I say women more so because again, like I think men like 24-hour cycle, hormones, it's a bit more complex with women. But I have women who like can't shift weight and it's purely because they were not getting enough sleep.
And it's so hard to get people to get that. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago with a lady and Amy sent it to me and I was like, whenever Amy sends me a podcast, I'm going to listen to it because I'm excited to hear what she's learning about. And it was on hormones and fasting and then it just went into the women's cycle. And I was like, holy.
Oh, yeah, this is a whole.
But for all the lads listening, learn about your partner's cycle or just people that you work with. Like this lady's like, you should learn about it because it's like a 28-day cycle roughly or whatever it is. And the mood changes so much. And
so it should. And it's okay. And training around that and like learning to like, and this is a big thing that I say with women is like, stop also comparing yourself to your husband. Stop expecting to wake up and then be like, okay, the week before my period when I'm meant to be naturally like internalizing and resting and having more downtime and you're expecting yourself to run on a 24-hour biological clock. It's not going to happen. So don't train like that, then eat differently and then rest differently and then just acknowledge that. But again, like for men, that could be really helpful because if they then can pick and choose when to aggravate them.
Literally play the game.
Like, or just say, yeah, baby, you should have a nap and enjoy that. Do you want me to make you a cup of tea?
Yeah, I'll get you a cup.
Do that because again, like you can really, you know, be very supportive then to her stress.
Being a better partner.
But then you're going to probably help yourself and you're not going to get in so much shit.
Yeah, 100%. You might get lucky more too.
Yeah.
That's a tip of the boys. That's the one they're like.
A little pig cycle.
Yeah, they're like, I don't care about making her happy, but I get lucky more. I'm in. No. But
she's such a raging bitch. Like, I can't handle it. Oh, jeez. And I'm like, don't you dare.
But it was funny because he asked when she was explaining it, he's like, so how would you then flip that for men? And she's like, it's a simple cycle. It's a daily cycle.
Yeah,
and I was
24
like,
hours. Yeah.
we're simple beings. Yeah, I was like, all right, well, that makes sense.
Freaking men. Yeah, it really gives me the shits. And this is why I love actually working with men.
Yeah.
It's a real breeze because A plus B equals C, you know? Like
that's why I work with men as well because we're literally like
I need to change.
simple beings. Very, very simple.
Whereas women, it's a whole nother complexity and that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, like it's just a lot to do with then, again, how they're treating themselves but also not comparing themselves to their male co-worker or the guy that they're working out with or their partner, you know, being like, why can't I do that? Like I can never find the energy or pushing themselves to that degree and then expecting the same outcome.
So with those blokes, because a lot of blokes do say to me, I can't get to sleep. They might have, you know, their active mind. I hear that all the time and it really...
Can't shut my brain off.
Yeah, I can't shut that off. How would you sort of navigate with someone who's throwing that at you? Obviously, you know, you've linked it to poor food choices throughout the day, maybe not exercising well, maybe not journaling, and then it's just a rinse and repeat cycle. How would you go about helping someone break that cycle?
Beyond like obviously, okay, what are you eating through the day or what time are you training? So like I'll say to the people like, what are you eating before bed? You know, is that going to spike your blood sugars? That then it's going to wake you up at 2 a.m. because you're on a dip and so now you're awake and now you're spiraling. Self-care, you know, like what are you doing in that hour before bed? You know, is big too. You know, what are you doing? How are you creating a wind down space? So I do talk a lot about sleep hygiene. So an hour before bed, devices down, turn the lights off, like stop with the LED, like bright lights in your face until you go to sleep. How do you think melatonin can rise if it perceives blue light?
It's daylight. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And so then I say like, that, you know, put soft music on, turn the telly off, don't watch the news, like try not to be overstimulated, you know, don't have caffeinated drinks, don't drink alcohol. It's the obvious things. But then it can be things like there's really great supplements out there too. Yep. And again, that's sometimes where beyond that and people are like, I'm doing all the things, Taylah. And they sometimes are. And they still just can't sleep. But also because the body's now created a bit of a rhythm. Yep. And so now they're waking at set times every night because now their body's used to doing it. Yep. So it's all a big rhythm. It's a big, you know, circadian rhythm. But I say to them, that's when you could implement like different herbal medicines, different magnesiums. Again, the form of a magnesium for muscle versus sleep is different. So
really,
don't expect to take this form for your muscle recovery and then potentially that have that same impact with your sleep. So
what am I having? I don't even know now. I've got the bioceutical stuff.
It's like ultra muscle.
Yeah,
I think it's citrate and chelate.
So is
more muscle recovery? But you know how they have also like ultra muscle ignite? That's because they'll change the form of the magnesium.
What does Amy have
now?
Yeah. Didn't she buy some supplements?
Yeah, she'll have
because I'll just use hers.
She'll have it's a mixed form. It's citrate, glycinate, and orotate, which is heart, muscle, and nervous.
And can I just take that from her? Yeah, cool.
Can.
Thanks, Amy. Also,
like,
get
you pay for it.
Yeah. I'll pay for it, but that's fine.
But yeah, so it depends. And so sometimes then we'll also use different herbal medicines that will help to restore the circadian rhythm and just encourage that regular sleep pattern. And so then again, hopefully they won't need it to fall asleep. But yeah, again, then if those chronic issues are kind of going on, then I'll say maybe we should do some testing, check what your melatonin is. A lot of people know melatonin, they'll try melatonin, it doesn't work for me, but it's not always the issue. Yeah. It's like that wind up to bed, what they're eating through the day, how they like, you know, starting their morning, sunlight exposure is a big one. So I say to people, even if you've had the worst sleep, like still get up at the same time, still get out in the sun within an hour, like get that sunlight on your face, because how many people do just like, they'll just go straight from their closed in home to then in the car into the office. Yeah. There's no sunlight exposure. So it's again about supporting the circadian rhythm, blue light, go back out at lunchtime, watch the sunset, watch that actual motion, then set the lights at home to be the same and get your hippie salt lamp out. Stu hates that thing. He's like, that fucking salt lamp. You know, so there's things like that. And then support that circadian rhythm. Yeah. And there's also research that showed like people who went camping for 3 days had the ability to help reset the circadian rhythm, because again, like you're just going with the flow of the state of being, but people are pushing that limit all the time.
We took the lads camping out to Girraween National Park at Christmas, and it was a dry, like no one was allowed to drink as well, because we want to help men develop the skills to communicate without alcohol.
Great.
And when you get the campfire blaring, it's not a
turn her up, boys.
Turn her up, boys. Light her up. No,
get it on the app on the phone, set it in front of you.
That's all it was.
None of us actually real men. We don't know how to light the fire.
We were camping in the front of our house, but like the conversations that started flowing, but everyone was up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
After a couple of days and going to bed
at a reasonable time.
You have last light and everyone's like, all right, well,
yeah,
I'm ready for bed now. And I'm like, this is how it is. And everyone was super chilled out,
it feels
calm.
so good. You're spending it all day outside. Like you're just getting the natural ebb and flow of that rhythm.
It's and I guess that's where like places like Wingana and some of those retreats you did speak about that are an immersive experience are a great way to reset. But then you got to have that follow through plan. And I think many of the things you've said have really just come back down to being intentional. Like being intentional with what you put in your body, making sure that if you are struggling to sleep, being intentional with your wind down routine or how you are dealing with stress, the foods that you're putting in, exercise, all of that sort of stuff. Go searching for answers and work out what works for your body. Because once again, we are all unique.
Yeah, and there's so much there's so many resources out there now to, on how to set up and how to establish a good sleep rhythm. And I think, again, you've just got to go hunting a little bit further and have a bit more of an attempt of okay, how could I help myself? And start small. Try and just drop the laptop or put the phones down an hour before and see how that goes, or make sure the bright lights are off, and in the first thing in the morning get out and just literally, sometimes it's so cold, I'll just literally stand at the window with my face. I'm like, oh, wake mum. And it's hard because I'm not a morning person. I've tried, and I've just let that go. I'm like, I'm not going to stress myself with that anymore. I'm just naturally better at night. But I give myself routine because then I know, but that's another thing is routine, because again, the body will process that. So if you can create a really good 1 hour wind down period before bed each night, and you just keep saying, you keep doing kind of the same pattern before that bed, it's the body, then it reads that and is like, oh, this is our wind down pattern. It's time for cortisol to drop, melatonin to increase, and so your sleep quality is better. Because a lot of people too will get 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever. Men on average need less. Again, blessed 24-hour cycles. Yeah. But, if then they're, doing all those things but they're not getting good quality, then that's also another thing to look at, because people will be like, I get 8 hours, but it's not good quality, or it's at the wrong time. Yeah, I'm waking up so many times, Yeah, or they're just not even, it's just not restorative, or they're going to sleep and they're getting from 12 till 6, or they're getting 12 till 7, so it's still 7 hours. How from your understanding, how important is that? Because there are people who say I'm a night owl, and there's a great book, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker, who talks about different styles, I can't remember. Chronotypes? Chronotypes. Yeah. And when I read that, I was like, it makes sense, but I'm still a big believer. It's dusk and dawn. That's when you should be sort of naturally doing that, because I see a lot of people who stay up till midnight and sleep till 10 a.m. That's when I do better. And again, I'm like, okay, I do believe you, but also got to be within reason, because the world functions not on your chronotype. It functions on the normal. Yeah. And they're the people that I see are a little bit more overweight. They struggle with moods and weights, in the midsection. And the tire and a lot of that sort of stuff. And I go, okay, well, that may be what you feel is the case, but have you tried? Yeah. Yeah, winding it back. Because people don't know, even for me, I didn't know how unhealthy I was until I really, I was playing bloody top-level sport and stuff, and I thought I was healthy. I was drinking piss till 4 a.m. and I'd play footy. Yeah, you'd be like, but I can play footy all day, so I'm fine. I scored a try. I'm good. I dropped the ball a few times, but hey, we're good. I'm sick. I'm fucking awesome. Mad. But then when I started fasting and I started cutting out alcohol, looking at what I put into my body, and my mental clarity and this fog lifted, and I was like, wow. Yeah. I thought I was high functioning then, but now I'm because how could you be objective? Yeah, how do you know any different? Yeah. And so, I do say to those people who are like, no, I'm just more productive, or a lot of people will say it's just good because then once the kids are down, then I can get all my stuff done. And I'm like, yeah, but then because of your hormones and because of this, then you're probably not getting good quality sleep. And they say in Chinese medicine, it's 10 till 12 is adrenal restoring time. Yeah. Yeah. So then if you're constantly pushing that from midnight on, you could still get the hours in, and people get really attached to the hours, but I'm like, it's the timing also, because again, you could miss that good quality with the cortisol and the melatonin and how that's meant to rise at a certain time too. You can't change that. That's a circadian rhythm that's built in. So you can't kind of be like, you know what, melatonin, we're going to need you at 1 a.m., not 10 p.m. when it's naturally at its highest. So you've got to kind of roll with that. And so again, like that's been a challenge for me because personally, again, like I am a nighttime person. I just have so much more energy at night. But again, like I'm very intentional about my wind down. I do the same thing before I go to bed most nights. I mean, it's not always perfect, but it's just about also then giving myself boundaries. And sometimes I do get into bed and I'm like, I could definitely not sleep right now, but I'm like, Stu's snoring, just may as well get it done.
Let's watch Black Mirror.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, well, do something that's going to make me tired, read or whatever.
Yep.
And again, mornings are a little bit trickier for me, but I've just acknowledged that I'm not going to be that 4 a.m. person, but, somewhere between 6 and 7 is good for me. That's what
so
works.
Dreamy.
It is good. Yeah, it is nice. I mean, but then I envy the 4 a.m. I'm like, imagine how much I could get done before. But I've tried. I'm like, nah, you know what, Taylah? Anything is possible. Just set your alarm the same time, for a whole month and change your cycle. Like you can do it. I can't do it.
I literally force myself to, and I don't. I was doing a presentation, and I was like, I literally wake up every morning resentful and like bitter, and everyone's like, you.
Well, then why are you doing it?
And I'm like, I've never really thought about it, and this dude put me on the spot. And I was like, if I'm being honest, then I don't like getting up at 4. I get up at 4 because it's like what I've convinced myself I need to do.
Conditioned yourself
condition myself to be successful, but also to have the time for me to read and not be distracted by emails.
Yeah.
And so it does work well, but I hate it.
Yeah.
And so now that I've been researching more, now I listen to a lot of your stuff, listen to a lot of other stuff on the impact of sleep, I'm like, okay, well, when we move, I'm changing my routine, and it's 6. And I'm okay with that because now that I've been testing it more on
and
some
you had
days.
the awareness.
And I'm like, I'm not losing anymore. I'm actually more productive. I'm enjoying waking up.
And you're waking up feeling like, okay, I'm rested. I'm ready for the day now. Yeah. And I think that first hour of how you spend the morning is big. If you're going to wake up and check your phone and scroll and emails and things straight away, well, like it doesn't really matter what time you're waking up. It's just going straight into fight or flight, aren't you?
I read a stat the other day that the average punter scrolls the same amount as the height of the Statue of Liberty in New York every day. That's a lot of scrolling.
That is
think of the RSI coming our way.
Yeah, and Technic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Don't get me started.
Not good.
But Taylah, I want to respect your time. I know Stewie's having some pints. We need to go grab him. Hopefully he's not
We
had
need to
too
go
many.
save him from the chippies.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, and we're, with your permission, we'll get you back on here again because there's so many other topics I want to dive into with you that we didn't even get to cover today. But where can people find you?
So at the moment, I'm working in like a clinical space in Toowoomba. So at this current stage, because of the said baby, I'm not taking any more initial clients for now.
Yeah.
But I'll be back in the new year, so 2024. And then, my books will be back open eventually. But again, I do try to, I'm not as good as it should be because, timing and life, and that's my excuse. But I do have an Instagram page as well, so I'm sure you'll be able to hook them up with that.
Yeah, I'll plug all of that.
And then I do try to do some workshops as well.
Yep.
and so, I
might actually get you down to Brisbane after the baby, like once you chill out to get a workshop for us and we can actually, can you do all that testing like if we were to sort
there
that
and
out?
then?
Yeah, like the saliva testing
you could,
how would that work?
You could pre-do them all. Like you could have everyone's results there and then I could roll through them.
Oh, we're definitely doing that because what we're doing, so I'm going to be flying back every quarter and we're doing a workshop where we're going to aim for the blokes to have their bloods done every 6 months, but depending on the results, they can get it done more frequently, where we actually do that with them and they get the results and the professional will come through and talk about it. So you can see different people's results, so it makes you more aware. But even now that I know about this stress testing and whatnot.
And your testosterone can be incorporated in that too, so you can do all your sex hormones but also your stress hormones.
That's what I got tested the other day. So I probably did even I actually don't, I'll show you after what I got tested. I got tested shitloads of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've got some clients doing TRT therapy and stuff like that now, but they'd never had a baseline.
So good.
So it's interesting to watch them do it, but I'm like, I want a baseline.
Yeah.
Preferably.
And again, if you're not an unwell person, why would you ever have had bloods done? But I'm always encouraged, and I always encourage people to reach out. Even if I can't help you, but you're in a different area and you want to see someone face to face, we're really well connected, so I can always, pop you in the right place or make some suggestions. And I'm big on education, so I'm a big fan of people who
you
just
need to start
message
a podcast.
me. I know. Oh, I know. I love it so much. But maybe post baby when I can control when the baby cries.
Yeah. No, that'll be fair.
Not interrupting.
Thank you so much for coming.
Welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.